All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about syntax. So before we jump into this too deeply, what I want to do first is I want to jump in and I want to set up our developer environment. So remember in the previous section, we talked about a variety of options that we have, and we covered Python 3 with IDLE, and we ran basic commands with terminal, and then we wrote and ran a Python script with terminal and IDL, and then we ran a Python script with Visual Studio Code and terminal, and then we ran Python with Anaconda. So there's three options that we have. We can use the default IDLE to run the commands. We can also use Visual Studio Code and terminal, or we can run Anaconda. Now, what I recommend doing is you choose which way you want to go with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Anaconda because I can literally back up my code as I'm writing it. It gives me the ability to download the file. And that's really the biggest thing because with Visual Studio Code, you're not able to print the code. It has to be run through terminal every single time. And that gets really tiring. I would rather hit run on Anaconda than run it through terminal for this example. Now, if we're coding for 2 hours and then we run it in terminal, that's perfectly fine. But for this example, I want to use Anaconda for syntax and for all the basic Python that we're going to be covering in this section. So let's open up Anaconda. Okay, I'm going to open that up and make sure that it's saved in my taskbar here. And then we're going to, on the desktop, right click and make a new folder. We'll label this 03. Hold on a second. Let's call this 03, and we'll do Python basics. Okay, and then I'm going to put that right here. Okay, so you see this is in order. So we have 01 Python script, and then Visual Studio Code, Python script, and now we have Python basics. Okay, so we can save everything that we do in this folder for this section, and then we'll just label the files accordingly. Syntax, comments, you get the idea. Okay, this way it's organized and it's easy for you to manage. So let's run Anaconda and let's open up Notebook. And as we open this up, the very first thing that I want you to do once this loads up, okay, we're going to go over to, we're going to hit File, New, not even File. We're just going to click on New and do Python 3 Notebook. And then what I want to do is I want to save this notebook as syntax. And we'll do 01 syntax. Okay, so I save that. And now you can see our notebook is saved right here. Okay. Now the other thing we can do is we can make a folder, or we can go inside the desktop and then save here. So let's do that. What we're going to do is we're going to go inside of Python Basics. I'm going to click New, Python 3, and then we're going to save this as 01 syntax. Okay, and then you'll see that it's saved where it needs to be. So 01 syntax. Okay, we'll do no spaces. Okay, it's not letting me save, but let's take a look why. So I'll click on the little floppy disk here. Okay, so we'll do 01 syntax. We will get this working. And now let's open it. There you go. So now if I minimize Firefox and Anaconda and everything else, if we go into Python Basics, there you go. We have syntax IPYNB, which is a notebook. Okay? So it worked. So what we're going to do is every time that we go to a new video, we're going to create a new notebook and we're going to save the files there. So all of your basic Python code will be in this Python Basics folder. And it'll be easy for you to find. Okay? So now what I want to do is let's go back into Anaconda in the browser. Let me see if I can open the browser here. There we go. All right, we're back in now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up. Okay, now the cool thing about this too is once we write something, it's going to save it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and this is a basic command or that everyone writes when they're learning programming. Print hello world is the most common phrase written. Okay, so we're going to run this, and now it says hello world. Okay, so you're good to go. Now let's talk about, so that's an example of how to execute Python syntax, okay? So Python indentation refers to the spaces at the beginning of a code line, where in other programming languages, the indentation in code is for readability only. The indentation in Python is very important, okay? Python uses indentation to indicate a block of code. So I'll give you an example of indentation, okay? If I do if ten is greater than 2, okay, so let's try this again. If 5 is greater than 2, and I'll give it a space here, print 5 is greater than 2. Okay, and we'll close that. And then let's run this. 5 is greater than 2. Okay. The number of spaces is up to you as a programmer, but it has to be at least 1. Okay, so there you go. You have to use the same number of spaces in the same block of code. Otherwise, Python will give you an error. Okay, so there you go. So let's do one more here. And again, this is very basic stuff. But the point of this is to introduce you and just to get you familiar with Python syntax, okay? So another example would be if 10 is greater than 2, colon, print 10 is greater than 2. Okay. Okay, so if I run that, we should get the error and we're good to go. 10 is greater than 2. There you go. So really the idea of this is just to show you the syntax, the formatting, and that kind of thing. Okay. So this is very straightforward and very simplistic, and there's not a lot here. but really it's just to show you that when you do certain things, you get a reaction to that, or a reaction for every action. Okay? So that is syntax. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.